Hi, I'm David Kirshner for West Hempstead Echo, and thank you for joining us for our annual school budget interview. The budget vote will be taking place on Tuesday, May 19th from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. at the Secondary School North Gym. And joining me today is Karen Brohm, School Board President, and Brian Phillips, the Assistant Superintendent for Business Operations. So thank you both for joining us, albeit remotely.
Thank you for having us, as always. It's good to be able to have a conversation and get the word out in regard to the budget and what everybody's looking to get answers to.
All right. Well, hopefully we'll try to touch on as many of the important subjects as possible, and as we go along, if there's anything that we're missing, please jump in and let me know. So, as we're winding down to another school year, it's always great to start off to hear about all the amazing accomplishments, or at least some of the highlights. And, I know that the graduation rates continue to be well into the mid-90s. Well, what else is going on that's really exciting?
I guess you would start with go school by school for Chestnut Street. Basically, they go everything from dance residency to Valentine for veterans. Ram Pathway Grant has continued for another year. I'm not sure if you want me to continue, but Cornwall Avenue School, Big Brothers Big Sisters with the secondary school continues. The third grade trip for the LEADA initiative happened this year. Recycling Challenge was a big thing at Cornwall this year. At George Washington, the Beautiful Me happened again for this year at George Washington. Athletes Helping Athletes initiative continues between George Washington and the secondary school. There was a grant for a fishing trip given to us this year for sixth graders. And secondary school, as you said, the graduation rates have continued at that level. We have AP recognition for both college culture, for schools of excellence, continues with school scholar athletes for the students that participate. NISBA All-State Symphonic Band. We had two people go up to Albany. Two of 45 students who were selected to speak at the State Assembly this year, which is a new recognition for the West Hempstead School District. Regents rates stay high. We rolled out Conmigo, which is a AI-related tool for our students and staff for this school year. And we expanded our Ram Haven this year, which is internally our program for our students at the secondary school.
Wow.
So there's a lot of accomplishments that happened just in 25-26 at West Hempstead.
That's amazing. So listen, there's always something great that's going on at the school district, and it's really exciting to hear about everything that's going on, and looking forward to another school year starting next year and see what the kids can do next year. But before we get that far, we're getting ready for budget time, which is always such an exciting time in West Hempstead. Let's first start off with the state aid. So the state aid is expected to increase by more than $2 million from last year. First of all, is that figure locked in? Because I know there's a lot of going back and forth with the state. And is this increase larger than in previous years? And if so, why?
Unfortunately, the governor's budget from January is available to us, but the legislative budget that's still ongoing, we've reached May. So we still have to use the numbers back in January as part of our budget. We have to adopt in April. That's the requirement for the school district. So the board adopted based on those numbers. We would like more money. Maybe we'll get that when the budget's eventually adopted by the state. It did go up a little bit this year based on how they calculate aid for West Hempstead School District. So there was a different part of formula used last year. By changing over, it led us to more expense-based reimbursement. So things like BOCES aid, building aid, transportation aid, those rose more. But we got $500,000 of foundation aid, and that's our biggest source of aid. And $500,000 for a budget our size is not tremendous.
Okay. And so the state's going to be paying for some more direct expenses that they haven't paid in previous years.
I think the amount they're going to reimburse the district on a lag basis, so it's still the expenses for 25-26 will be picked up in 26-27 at a higher rate than they were the prior year.
Gotcha. And the tax levy, that's increasing by approximately $1 million or 2.2%. Is that in line with the expectations? And then the follow-up question to that is, what kind of feedback have you received from the community about this increase?
I mean, 2.22, I believe, is our tax levy limit, and we did go to that based on the state's formula. So the combination of the many factors to go into that, but it's still lower than the average for Nassau County, not just this year, but over multiple years. So that does go into our thought process when we get into budgeting.
So the board tries to obviously stay underneath the tax cap. We know that we're not a district that can pierce that cap. There are many districts that have to pierce the cap simply because their levy is a negative number at this point. So even if they go out at zero, they're piercing the tax cap. We fortunately for us, we're not in that predicament because just the words piercing the cap, even if it was zero, would send people over the edge. And we don't disagree with that. We understand it. We know what it means. But, when you listen to the other districts that have to do it, we know why they have to do it. As far as pushback, the only pushback we get is the fact that we have to make some cuts based on the fact that this levy still leaves us in a deficit. We can use reserves, but we can only use so much of the reserves because it's not sustainable to continue to do so just to keep us at status quo. So,
when you talk about cuts, what specifically are you talking about?
We've made staffing cuts this year. We've kept all programs in place, but when you have a deficit, the numbers, unfortunately, usually come out of staff. That's where your biggest numbers are.
Yeah. Do you have are there any numbers that you can share as far as, total headcount that was dropped or, what the total numbers were for the cuts?
It was 21 faculty members across the board that will not be returning. Some are by attrition, some are by choice of leaving, some are by retirement. Right. And then the rest are being accessed, unfortunately.
Is there any services still maintaining the same for the kids? Like, would the kids notice that there's any changes with these cuts?
Classroom size will still be developmentally appropriate. We're retaining programs. We're not cutting anything that's going to harm student development at this point. Great.
So one of our favorite subjects is the reserve fund. Currently, I think the plan is to withdraw 1.9 million for this year. Is that's correct, right, Brian?
That was the budget amount. We'll see at year end how much we actually use. There are things that go into it where if we don't need to use it, we don't use it. So we'll check at year end. But the budget amount was about 1.9 million.
So how long can, this also plays back to what Karen was saying, how long can we keep dipping into the reserve fund and, does the reserve fund, get replenished? Or, at what point does the run rate go to zero?
It depends on our expenses. If our expenses are above the amount of aid we get and the amount of levy we have, that's when the reserves come to play. That's the purpose of the reserves, to fill that spot. So if our expenses are kept in line, there is no need to use those reserves. That's just we're trying to keep a balanced budget, and that's the part of the reserves. They fill that space. Right. We are $1.9 million is in our budget again for 26-27, and then we'll see how our expenses run in 26-27 for that usage.
So how are we feeling about that? Do we think that 1.9 is going to be enough, to cover us for the year?
No, it does. It is the part of the budget that, with the revenue, equals our expenses. So that's how we get to our balanced budget. So it is there. for that purpose, and that's why we use it.
Okay, great. So I've heard this, over the years, the two biggest costs are the medical costs and the transportation costs. Medical is hard to argue with because, medical costs keep going up and, it's just what it is. Transportation, has always been, a real challenge. And even when you look at the charts that you have submitted, West Hempstead is like off the charts as far as the average expenditure compared to the rest of Nassau County. I think actually West Hempstead is twice as high of transportation costs as the average within the rest of Nassau County. Is there any sunshine up ahead for transportation costs, or this is continuing to, just be a downward slope?
I think that if we look at it, we've had this conversation before. We've had it pretty much every year I've been doing this with you, that it's going to depend on how many students are being bused. We bus to an exorbitant amount of schools. We have over 100 routes. That being said, it depends on what the busing companies are costing us. Now, Mr. Phillips has done phenomenal jobs with keeping us in line when our contracts come up, getting us, our increases just at CPI, where other districts are getting 30% increases in their busing costs. If that was happening to us, we would never be able to sustain that. Busing is a legal thing. It's a legal requirement. We have to bus to the students that are within the 15-mile and the resident, the distance from home. There's nothing we can do about that. But when we're in a district where approximately 40 to 45% of our school-age children go outside of the district, there's going to be busing costs involved, and we have to pay that. Nobody is saying you cannot send your child to a private school, a charter school, a specialty school. That's a parental choice. We would never say that. And it's our responsibility as a district to bus those children if they fall within the legal limit required.
Yeah.
So, that being said, we're never going to get away from busing costs.
Yeah.
We have to do it. So now we have to pay, we have to pay for it. And sometimes, if you recall, I think it was the very first year that I was on with Joel Press, we talked about, we had one student, we were paying $60,000 a year for
I remember.
To get bused. So when you end up with buses like that, where one or two students are on a bus and it's costing $60,000 or $80,000, people have to realize that that's where that money is coming from.
Yeah. No, listen, I know it's an ongoing issue, and I know that board member David Lazar was trying to come up one of the meetings with very creative ideas of, how to deal with these 2s and 3s of kids. But the real reality is there is no simple answer. It's a state mandate, and you got to do it, and it's challenging. But one of the things that made it even more challenging was the laws that I think we're going to be kicking in next year, that all new buses would have to be electric buses. But there's always back and forth that they're going to change the law, they're going to delay it or postpone it. Any new information about the electrification of the school buses?
We're still awaiting if there's a part of the state's new budget for next year, if that's going to be extended time frame. We contract out for our buses, so we don't own buses ourselves. Our contractors have to be involved with that, but as was said, we have many, many routes with many, many buses. All those contractors, since we have several, would have to get electric vehicles at some point, and they are maybe 3 to 4 times the cost of the current vehicles. So we're waiting to see if the state does push back that mandate a little further to help out, or provide some fiscal assistance to the school districts, because we only get a finite amount of aid for transportation. We're already paying out of pocket, as you said, the second highest in West Hempstead for Nassau County. So it's we would like, for the districts that do have the most transportation, we will have the most costs for this electrification process.
Right, and there's a lot of lobbying going on in many of the associations, whether it's the Superintendent's Association or the Nassau Suffolk School Boards or just the local school boards that are asking for that. We're all lobbying against the timeline, to be pushed back because this is going to hit everybody's pocket very, very quickly. And the roads and the electric can't sustain charging all these buses or even holding these buses. They're bigger, they're wider, they're heavier. It's a big issue.
Yeah, no, it's a huge issue. On social media, I've seen pictures of the Amazon electric trucks, sitting in the parking lot, and they're all being powered by diesel generators. It's a mess. But in the past, there, if I remember correctly, there was only one bus company who was taking the West Hempstead's bids. Are there more than one bus company who's involved now in the process?
I think we have one company that does our large bus routes, and that was our large bid that does most of the transportation for us in district. But we have probably maybe 6 or 7 transportation companies that handle all our routes because we go out to bid to get the lowest responsible price for these routes. And when we do have a route with, say, 2 or 3 students going out, we might have another company other than the one that does our big bus route. But we're going to take the lowest responsible bid from a company when we go out that direction.
But we also, to answer to, I think, a little more to your question, we are still seeing where you're not getting multiple bids on many routes. And I think that was the question you were asking, because in the past, it was like, if only one bid comes in, you have no choice. You have to go with what they're offering you.
Yeah.
And that is becoming, it is still an issue across Long Island. We're not the only district facing that problem. Because many of these bus companies have either collapsed or merged into one company.
Gotcha. Yeah. Listen, there's no easy answer, and I have a feeling we're going to be talking about this, for years to come. And but I think getting a little relief in pushing out the date of the electric buses coming in would certainly, help, at least in the short term, anyway. So. I want to switch subjects to the charter schools and specifically the Diamond Charter School, because I'm a little bit confused about their role in the community, their role in Hempstead, but they're setting up in West Hempstead for the short term. I guess my first question is, have you seen any impact on enrollment with the Diamond Charter School trying to make a move into West Hempstead?
I don't believe at this time we have anyone enrolled in Diamond. I don't know that they've made that much of, they've tried to make a push here, but I don't know that they've made that much influx. The people that are here that are going to charter school are really going to like Academy or Evergreen. They're known entities in the area. Could that change? Of course it could change, but right now I don't believe that we have anyone enrolled there. So as far as that goes, I don't think it's an issue. I know, to explain what you were asking about the Hempstead versus West Hempstead thing, they were given permission to run a charter school out of the Hempstead School District, but the property that they're supposed to be going into is not ready.
Right.
So they were given permission to incubate here. I love that. Incubate here in the St. Thomas building for 18 months. So they have 18 months to get that building up and running, and if it's not up and running, then they lose the ability. I guess they can reapply to stay here, but right now it's for 18 months.
Okay. So the net is, I mean, they're here for 18 months, but you're not really seeing any certainly operational changes, that would impact the budget at this point. Is that a fair statement?
I think if there's costs to be involved, we would know more about it as we get into 26, 27. But as of right now, like our budget's built as is.
Right.
Okay. The universal pre-K. So, that's often been a hot button issue within the community. Fortunately, it seems to not be a hot button issue, but it's more of a positive, across all of West Hempstead, which is great. So, how is the program progressing, and have any additional seats been added this year to help with the bottleneck?
So the state has not given us any additional seats at this time, but of course their budget is also not finalized. So we're still sitting on 140 seats in district, 130 seats in district. And we utilize those seats here at the Chestnut Street program. And then what doesn't get used by the school district gets funneled out to both Hank and Yeshiva Hartorah.
Right. Right. So Hank and Yeshiva Hartorah has had an increase in seats allocated to them from the original 130?
So the 130 is all that West Hempstead gets total. Okay. So they both put in an RFP requesting seats from the district. And the district gave them an allotment of seats each. Those seats, should the public school district not fill all of our seats, then it's a longer process. At Bed's Day, we then allocate those seats to those schools so that they get utilized.
Great. Okay. And how did the lottery go? Was that a smooth process?
Lottery is always a smooth process. Yeah, people have to apply to be in the lottery. It's pulled. The information is given back to the schools, and then they go on, and notify their parents. And it's been a great thing. I mean, the first year that we were doing the half portion where we gave seats to both of the outside CBOs, had a little bump. We had tried to figure out what the best way to do it was. But since then, we've had great relationships with both programs. We work very well with them. The district meets with them on a regular basis. There's constant conversation between those buildings and the superintendents. And we've had no issue, contrary to the information that is generally given out.
Okay. Could you claw? Just curious. Could you claw back from YHT and Hank if needed?
Well, we don't have to claw back because 90 of those seats are allotted to Chestnut Street to start, and YHT and Hank get the other 40 because that's the way it's set up. And then when Bed's Day comes, if we're not utilizing those seats here, they go to the people on the waiting list at those programs.
Gotcha. So Karen, another subject, and again, over the years we have, we see some of the same recurring items. One of them is enrollment, and enrollment seems to be continuing to decline, probably for a good part of a decade. Is that still the case currently and going forward? And then I guess my follow-up question to that would be, with Heatherwoods now sort of coming online and they're getting rentals coming in there right now, do you see that having a positive impact on overall enrollment?
So enrollment, I think, is pretty steady at this point, and we're leveling out. And every study that we've done has shown that enrollment is going to level out. Now, that being said, people could move into the district, make the choice to send their children outside a district, which would then change that. But the enrollment study shows that it would be leveled out. As far as how the word project goes, I don't want to speak to it. We don't have that many students that came out of West 130. So I don't know who or what is going to move into Heatherwood, if it's going to be older adults who don't want to have a home anymore and don't want to take care of stuff like that. If it's going to be, like residents at the hospital or people that just want to be out of the city and they're going to move their children out here. That would be wonderful for us in that we would get more students involved in the public school. But it's hard to tell because they're only just renting those. I mean, they're beautiful. I'd love to go live in them.
You know what? The other day I walked by and on Hempstead Turnpike, and like I just had to do like a head snap because it was beautiful. I mean, it's with this big clock, and they did an amazing job on landscaping and things like that. I would think that there will be a lot of families going in because a lot of the units are 2 and 3 bedroom units, so it would make sense that there would be a pickup. But I guess to your point, you don't know until people start moving in.
Right. I don't even think they're able to occupy until the fall. So I'm not sure, like there's no way to tell unless somebody comes in here and says, we're going to move in and we need to enroll our child.
Got it. And so, Brian, historically, the district has spent about 96% of its annual budget, and hopefully that's still the case. Is that this? Are we looking at that same sort of percentage for this year?
I think so. It's tough to tell until year end. I mean, we might even be above it just due to the unfortunately the winter we had led to additional overtime costs for snow removal, which this year was definitely more so than the past years. But we'll know as we get to the end of June when we get to the audit to see if we spent percentage wise.
Gotcha. It's our understanding, and this is just based on an article in the Herald and some social media posts, that David Lazar is not running for re-election, and that there's a newcomer, George Demanis, is filling that position. Do I have that right?
You do. David has made the decision not to rejoin the board next year or not to try to be reelected. And we thank him for his service for the 3 years that he was on the board. But we also understand that if you make that choice, that this might not be the job, the choice to return. George Demanis is running for David's seat. He is running uncontested, as is Joe Magarachi, running uncontested for his seat. And Owen Ramelt, as you know, is running uncontested for the library board.
All right. Well, it certainly saves on a lot of lawn signs this year. So it makes things a lot easier. So this is Dan's favorite subject, but he's not going to be jumping in on this question. But voter turnout, was relatively low last year. Can you tell us? This should be self-explanatory, but I got to ask the question. Why is it important for residents to participate in the school budget and the elections?
I'll just start off it was actually the third highest in 15 years. So we had a good turnout last year. I mean, it's been relatively well. I mean, people in the community want to get involved with their school budget vote. So, but for the second part of your question.
So I'm going to jump in and speak while Brian is saying it was our third highest budget count in the last however many years. You know that I'm going to say it's not enough.
Correct. And Dan would agree with you.
When you have 15,000 or whatever registered voters in your district, you should have a very large number of people come out and vote. And the fact that people do not come out and vote just shows complacency. And they don't understand how important it is to come out and vote. Now, I'm not going to tell you how to vote, but I am going to tell you it's important to vote. Because you need to come out and be educated and understand what's going on in your community. If you're not doing that, you have no right to complain. And the phone calls that we will get when the tax bills come, or the questions we'll get after the fact, are, why did this happen, or what did this happen? But if you were able to go back and look at our videos from our meetings, I know it doesn't pan the audience, or even if you were sitting in our audience, you would know that the low turnout of people coming in to sit in those meetings or to watch them even on the video screen, 40 people, maybe.
Yeah, I know.
It's complacency. It's pure complacency. And this is what's going to happen because people are running uncontested. So people are going to feel that they don't need to come out and vote. They don't realize how important it is to come out and vote their budget.
Yeah, it really is disappointing to see those numbers. And a couple of years ago, there were the pre-budget meetings, had a lot of people, and I don't. Maybe it's a good sign. Maybe it just shows that people have confidence in the school board, but at the end of the day, you want to see people in the community participate, and I think not having them participate is not a good thing for West Hempstead.
Right. And the to your point, I would love to say it's all because they have great faith in us, which I hope they do. I mean, I've been here. This is my it's a very long 14th year on the school board.
Congratulations.
And we work very hard at what we do. I put my heart and soul into being here for everybody else's children when I had, I haven't had kids in the district in years.
Yeah.
But that's not a reason to not come vote. It's not about having faith in us. It's about understanding what you're coming to vote for, because those pieces, that complacency of you're putting your faith in us, doesn't mean that somebody else isn't going to come and vote it down. And then that was the conversation we've had in years past, where you can't blame the people that voted no. You can only blame yourself for not coming to vote yes, if that's what you want to do. 100%.
And listen, if nothing else, we live in a democracy. Having the right to vote is a privilege that every American appreciates, and or maybe they don't because they're not going, and it's a shame. I mean, it's I think there's an overall issue with civics, but that'll be a half-hour conversation. So we'll leave that one alone. We're getting close to wrapping up, and I'm kind of curious: are there any unexpected developments or emerging issues, including potential litigation or other financial concerns, that could still impact the budget before the end of this fiscal year? Any surprises?
I mean, we are still at the mercy of Albany to find out where our state aid lands. So we did have to adopt a budget, the board did, in April. There's no choice in that matter. We have to print the ballots, and next Tuesday, the 19th, we are going out to vote in West Hempstead. So if there's a very different number that ends up coming out from Albany for whatever reason, it leads to an issue next year. But we're locked in at this point. So we hope that stays.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I might not be able to comment specifically on this, but there is that the pending litigation regarding the teacher at the Cornwell School. Could that have a negative impact on the budget, or if there was monies that were part of whatever lawsuit might be settled, where do those monies come from?
Well, we wouldn't discuss any kind of litigation, obviously, personnel-wise, or no longer personnel-wise. However, that's not really an impact on the budget. That's an impact on the district. That's not going to change our budget number.
That's what I'm asking.
Excuse me, I apologize. If something were to come up, not that issue, a different issue, some other lawsuit or legality, or God forbid, a damage to the roof or a window or whatever that needed to be paid, that doesn't come out of our budget. That's now emergency expense or insurance payment or whatever, because it's exactly that. It wasn't budgeted for. It wasn't something that we planned for. So those things don't necessarily impact the budget, but they do impact the district's funds overall.
Gotcha. So a lot of the school districts, as you pointed out, were really in tough shape this year. You had piercing the cap and significant layoffs, and you read about it all the time in the papers. And in general, the West Hempstead School District keeps its head above water, which is amazing. And again, putting out great graduates and going on to unbelievable stuff. But you got transportation, you got medical, all these things that we've talked about. How do we secure the future? How do we get out in front of this so that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, things are in better shape than what they currently are, and things are okay. From what we're hearing, but how do we improve? How do we set the bar a little bit higher?
I think we just continue to do what we've been doing. Like, we have high graduation rates. We have increased AP recognition. We are teaming with local colleges to give credits to students so that when they do go to college, they're starting ahead of the curve. Things like that. And then everything from the secondary school to our younger learners having more programming into our school. I think if we continue to do what we're doing and do better, I think we're setting them up for a good future.
Great.
And I think if you're asking in regard to monetary and the budget, we have to continue to be fiscally responsible, and we have to continue to budget as tightly as we have and try to stick within the parameters we can. But we are at the mercy of the state as well, and we have to do what we have to do to meet their mandates. And people need to lobby, and people need to talk to their legislators and their assembly people and write letters to the governor stating that, they're not doing the funding right. Like,
Yeah.
we have all these, studies in place, and they did a whole Rockefeller study, and they've done stuff where we've talked about foundation aid and all this other stuff. The formulas are not right for school districts. They don't provide the monies that the school districts need. And the amount of school districts on Long Island this year that are doing massive layoffs and fighting the challenges that we've known about and been fighting for years, they just came in after the fact because they were hoarding reserves or they were doing something else. And now they're coming to the point where we were a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're kind of in a steady playing field here, and we're able to keep ourselves lower than the average of Nassau County.
Brian, Karen, as always, we really appreciate your transparency and spending your time with us. And this is over and above. No one's, you don't have to do this, but we really appreciate the fact that that you come on air and that you just tell us what's going on, because involvement with the school budget, having full transparency, getting families and parents involved, it's what it's all about, and you guys help make it happen. So I want to thank you very, very much, and I think that'll be a wrap for this has been a special school board budget interview brought to you by West Hempstead Echo. And again, thank you, both of you, for all your time. Greatly appreciated, and we're really hoping that state aid gets locked down really, really quickly. Thank you so much.
So are we. Thank you for having us. We'll see you at the polls on Tuesday.
Thank you.
You got it. All right. Thank you so much.